Hello, everybody. Welcome to this latest Q&A. I guess Q&A. Just a update from 49er land, although I'm about 40 miles from 49er land. But latest breaking news, Adam Schefter reports that the 49ers are releasing Leonard Floyd. Not necessarily an unexpected news, not an unexpected development. He was one of those guys that I mentioned. He and Kyle Juszczyk were two of the guys I mentioned who might not make it to the start of the new league year with the 49ers. Does it signal that the 49ers are in line to have an agreement with Joey Bosa? That remains to be seen. Mike Silver reported last night that Joey Bosa has very similar offers from the 49ers and the Miami Dolphins. So weighing that, Miami, that's Joey Bosa's hometown, grew up in Fort Lauderdale. His dad played 3 seasons with the Miami Dolphins. So there is definitely interest there, as well as Florida doesn't have any state income tax. Or he could rekindle that relationship or teammateship with his brother, Nick Bosa. The only time they've been teammates in their football careers was when Joey was a senior, Nick was a freshman at St. Thomas Aquinas. So that's the latest news. We'll see if there's any coming news as far as Joey Bosa goes. But that was one thing that I kind of thought would be, if the 49ers were able to sign Joey Bosa, that would spell the end for Leonard Floyd. So we'll see if that's still the case or if there's something like that. So anyway, thanks all for everybody tuning in right now. Give me your comments. Thank you to Red Sox 4. Appreciate the very kind words. And so let's kind of catch you up to date now as we look at where the 49ers are. Right now, a lot more goings than comings for the 49ers, and I'll just update my own list here. Leonard Floyd released. I'm sure the 49ers are looking to trade him before he hits that wire as far as a release. Kyle Juszczyk released. Dre Greenlaw goes to Denver. Charvarius Ward goes to Indianapolis. Aaron Banks goes to Green Bay. Talanoa Hufanga goes to Denver. Jalen Moore goes to Kansas City. Joshua Dobbs, New England. Elijah Mitchell, Kansas City. And then, of course, the ones that we knew about heading into Monday. Javon Hargrave released. The Vikings are closing in on agreeing to terms with him. That can become official on Wednesday. Deebo Samuel traded to Washington, and then John Feliciano retires. The only newcomers, guys coming into the 49ers that we know about at this point, tight end Luke Farrell, previously of Jacksonville. He signs with the 49ers. And then a safety, Richie Grant, former second-round pick, 40th overall in the 2021 NFL draft. He signs, or he's agreed to terms with the 49ers after 4 seasons in Atlanta. So when you look at where the 49ers are right now with their Nigel, I just see this. Trey Tomlinson. I don't know that I necessarily put Trey Tomlinson in that category, just because wasn't he claimed off waivers? So that means that even before the start of low cost guy, the Rams who aren't exactly strong at the cornerback position. So I don't know that Trey Tomlinson is going to have much of a chance to make this team. But we shall see. Okay, so a couple of stayings, and one in particular is very notable. The 49ers have decided to tender Jordan Mason at a second-round level. That's a pretty decent chunk of change when you consider that they've cut so much spending, or they didn't get involved in the spending on the first day of free agency to a large degree, all those guys leaving the team, yet they tender Jordan Mason at a second round level, which is $5.35 million. So that is a lot of money to pay for a backup running back. And with Miles Sanders getting cut on this particular day, um, he becomes, Jordan Mason, the highest paid backup running back in the league. And so what will the 49ers do there? They could hold on to him, retain his rights, and try to trade him. They could look to sign him to a longer term extension. I just think that this year of all years, when there is such a strong running back class in the draft, I don't know that uh, paying $5.35 million for a backup running back is necessarily cost effective. So we'll see what they have in store on that level. So Jordan Mason, though, tendered at that level for the 49ers. Okay, so let's just kind of take a look at where the 49ers need to do some work. So if you look at their offense right now, these are the players they have under contract, no fullback anymore. So I don't think the 49ers will look to fill necessarily Kyle Juszczyk's role. I think they did that when they signed Luke Farrell, the number 2 tight end. Yeah, by the way, they have a high-priced backup running back. They have a high-priced backup tight end. So where I look at the 49ers offensively, they have starters at every spot, assuming they go from 21 personnel, 2 backs, 1 tight end, to 1 back, 2 tight ends. So they have starters at every spot with Purdy, McCaffrey, wide receivers, Juwan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk. And if Brandon Ayuk isn't ready to go, they did select Ricky Pearsall in the first round last year. So he would be the guy, I would think, that the 49ers would expect to be a starter. Mentioned Kittle and Luke Farrell at tight end. And then the offensive line, as it currently stands, it would look something like this. Left tackle Trent Williams, right guard Ben Barch, maybe Spencer Burford, but Burford is also, he finished last season as the swing offensive tackle. Jake Brendel at center, Dominic Pooney, right guard, right tackle, Colton McKivitz. Where do the 49ers have work to do? Well, certainly at wide receiver to build up more depth there, but also on the offensive line. We've talked about the offensive line before. Can they improve at left guard? Can they improve at center? Those would be spots where the 49ers could look to do something. If there's a really high caliber offensive tackle staring them in the face at number 11 overall, could definitely see them going in that direction. So there's where the 49ers have work to do. I would expect them to add some guys in free agency. Not necessarily top level guys, not big priced, highest paid at their position kind of guys, but guys that can compete for either a starting job or depth and a roster spot. And where the 49ers have work to do on defense would be on the defensive line, at linebacker, and also at cornerback. So let's go through what they have right now on this team. Defensive ends, Nick Bosa, Yetur Gross-Matos. Those are kind of the top guys there. Defensive tackle is pretty thin with Malik Collins going to be moving on. And so it's Evan Anderson, Kalia Davis, Jordan Elliott. So we shall see if they're able to add Joey Bosa, what they do at the defensive tackle position as far as adding a veteran guy or two, and then what they do in the draft. A very, very deep draft for defensive tackles and defensive linemen in general. So with the 49ers having, I think it's 8 picks in the top 150 spots in this draft, opportunity for them to add some definite rotational players. At linebacker, with Dre Greenlaw gone, the way the 49ers lined up for the Week 18 game against the Arizona Cardinals, Fred Warner started along with D. Winters and Tatum Bethune. So that is what the 49ers have in place right now. I would expect them to add another linebacker in free agency and then also the draft. But when I think about it, and this is probably not exactly comforting to 49er fans, the linebacker position right now for the 49ers is in a better spot than it was a year ago, because a year ago they were banking on Dre Greenlaw coming back in mid-November, finishing the season strong and playing good football heading into the playoffs. 49ers didn't get anything out of Dre Greenlaw last year with coming back from the Achilles. He played one half of one game and just couldn't go anymore, and the 49ers shut him down. So last year they were under kind of the false pretense that they were going to get production out of Dre Greenlaw. That didn't happen, and so now they know what to expect. who they have. And remember last year they thought they had, or they did have an agreement with Eric Kendricks. He ends up deciding not to sign with the 49ers, reneging on the commitment, ends up signing with the Dallas Cowboys. And then that's how the 49ers ended up with Devondre Campbell. Also, cornerback. They have their starters, Diamador Lenore and Renardo Green. Now they need to add another piece, whether that's a nickelback or somebody who can play on the outside. Last year, and a couple guys who still are out there as unrestricted free agents, Isaac Yadam and Rock Yassin. Those guys are possibilities, but I think the 49ers will look to add at that position. And then, as I've mentioned in the draft, I don't see why they wouldn't go after a free safety type, a playmaker at safety, a ball hawk, a guy who can cover, who can slide inside and play the slot. So that's what we're looking at right now as free agency gets going. And by the way, I was going to wear this shirt. I don't know if you can see it. So here's a shirt a buddy got me. And what I was going to do on this was replace basketball. By the way, I'm a college basketball fan, and so obviously March Madness is coming up. But I was going to replace basketball with NFL free agency. That would be the shirt to have, because yesterday was one of the more notable days covering the 49ers, covering the NFL, with so much stuff happening. And so we got James Tyree. Thank you very much, James, for the very generous gift. And since it pops up on my screen in green, you get first dibs on this one. So thank you, James. Okay, so James says, now that Dre Greenlaw is gone, if Jihad Campbell is still available at 11, the 49ers should draft him. He plays so similar to Fred. It's amazing. I just don't know that inside linebacker is the way to go at the number 11 overall pick. Look at just where the 49ers drafted Fred Warner. Look where they drafted Dre Greenlaw. You don't have to take an 11 overall pick at that position. You can get really good guys a little bit later. And frankly, James, I don't know that I've seen, if you have an answer, I don't know that I've seen anybody have him mocked in the first round. So I would say find your guy later. And it doesn't have to be 11. 11 to me, the sweet spot when you're picking at number 11, the sweet spot is offensive tackle. That's why I had Armand Mimbu going to number 11 for the 49ers. But after that combine where he just blew up, it's quite possible that he's not there. Before that, I had Tyler Warren. I don't know that this eliminates Tyler Warren as a possibility for the 49ers because of his extreme versatility. And yes, meaning the signing of Luke Farrell. I don't think that eliminates Tyler Warren from being on the 49ers radar at number 11. But what it also might say is that the 49ers don't think that Tyler Warren is getting there. But Tyler Warren has that ability to line up in the backfield and block, line up in the backfield and run the ball. He has the ability to play in line and be a good blocker in the run game. He has the ability to bump outside to the slot or outside, I guess, and just create matchups. So that's what Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers will definitely be looking to do, is to create those matchups, figure out how you pivot after being such a 21-based personnel team, 2 backs, 1 tight end. Kyle Juszczyk, 8 years with the 49ers. 2017, he was part of that class that got up there. So 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, so 8 years with the 49ers. Good thing I didn't have to take off my socks and shoes and count my toes. 8 years, 8 Pro Bowls, a very good professional, somebody that the team will miss, but also somebody that the team was, kind of bracing for losing a year ago. So you knew that once they went down that road of asking him to take a pay cut or else last year, they would do it again. And certainly they did do that. So um, thank you to James Tyree for the generous gift and for that question, that observation. Okay, a lot of comments here. I'm just going to try to breeze through it and see um, what we got here. Is there anything that kind of or a question about why Leonard Floyd was cut. Just last week, I wrote a story at NBC Sports Bay Area about 49ers, guys that could be cut leading into free agency. And, obviously the top one on the list was Kyle Juszczyk, just based on, here we go. So I said the 49ers could face difficult decisions with these 5 veterans. Oh, Javon Hargrave was at the top of the list because we already knew the answer to that one. So I said Javon Hargrave, I said Leonard Floyd, Kyle Juszczyk, Yetur Gross-Matos, and also George Odom. George Odom, special teams guy, scheduled to make $2.3 million. And now, frankly, with the 49ers acquiring Richie Grant, who's a special teams player, that would look more like a possibility, more likely that the 49ers would go in that direction with George Odom. So 49ers aren't finished. They I guess they aren't finished losing players. I also don't think the 49ers are finished adding players, but Joey Bosa is one right now to just keep an eye on. And I know a lot of people out there are wondering that. Does this mean that Joey Bosa is coming to the 49ers? I think they'd have to be really certain of that. They would need a firm agreement in place. But, here's the thing about what I would say with Leonard Floyd is that he gave the 49ers exactly what they thought that they were getting, which was a guy who would be 8, 9, 10 sacks. That's what he's done in his recent history. That's what he did last season, 8.5 sacks for the 49ers. I think in a perfect scenario, just like with Joey Bosa, Leonard Floyd would not have been an every down player. He played 17 games, started 17 games for the 49ers and played a lot of snaps, just like Malik Collins. Played 17 games, played a lot of snaps. 49ers are ready to move on from Malik Collins as he will likely be released tomorrow. They're looking to get something for him, but considering they acquired him last year for a 7th-round pick, and this year he only has 1 year left on that deal, I just don't know how realistic that would be. What do we got here? RG, thank you very much. I'm going to give you a thumbs up. I'm going to go up there and give, can I give that a thumbs up? Anyway, so thank you for your generous gift. And James, thank you for yours. Okay, so let's see what RG says. 49ers gave it a good run, just couldn't seal the deal, but at least they tried and made the dance. Well, that's a very optimistic way of looking at it, RG. I have a feeling that maybe you're in the minority with your very positive vibes of they gave it a good run. Yeah, they did give it a good run. And they had their opportunities to win a Super Bowl, making it to the NFC Championship game 4 of 5 seasons, putting together a really good stretch of football, but they didn't get it done. And in an organization with 5 Lombardi trophies in that trophy case, and an organization that hasn't won a Super Bowl since January of 1995, there will be many people who say it just wasn't good enough. But I think RG is trying to bring some perspective that 49ers had a really good team. Now, does this mean I always kind of push back at the whole idea of the window closed and it's a rebuild? I don't think so. I think any team that has, well, let's just go Brock Purdy for starters. Brock Purdy, with Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. And by the way, now that Diamador Lenore contract is looking pretty darn good. I think any team that has that many high-priced players and still some of the highest paid players at their positions, or at least on that higher side, I don't think the window is closed. Now, are they? I mean, am I going to pick them to even be a playoff team in 2025? I don't know. I haven't yet decided that, but I don't think it's a given. But I also wouldn't just rule them out from, tearing it down and burning it all up. I mean, a year ago, if you had asked me about the Philadelphia Eagles based on how they ended that season, how they look to be in kind of a downward spiral, no Fletcher Cox, no Jason Kelsey, all that, I don't know that I would have thought that their window was wide open to win a Super Bowl, but it clearly was. So much can change. So much is reliant on team health, how players mesh, finding the right players. A good player in one system might not be a good player in another system. So we'll see. That's why they play the games. So once again, thanks to Tyree and RG for those questions. Let's see here. There's a question about 49ers. How much money have they saved? Well, I'm assuming. So I don't know if that means with all the guys who got away, clearly they saved money by not paying those huge prices to some of the guys who are leaving. But for Javon Hargrave, they'll save $2.2 million on the cap this year, but there will be and the $15 million in dead money will be spread out over a couple years. Kyle Juszczyk will save about $3 million with his release. And then for Leonard Floyd, who signed a 2-year, $20 million contract last year, they'll save $1.5 million this season. And kind of the key is also, it's not just what you save this year, it's also clearing up money for future seasons. So in other words, if those guys who were traded, or those, in fact, in the case of Deebo Samuel, they take on a $31 million hit of dead money this year. They don't have to pay him any more money, but the money already paid to him in the form of bonuses that hadn't yet counted against the cap, that would be that accelerates to this year, and then it's wiped off the books. So a lot of it is not necessarily how much they're saving this year. It's about clearing money for off the books when big money deals for Brock Purdy and others continue to rise. So you can either do it, you can create a situation with two players being designated as post June 1 releases. And so any of those guys I talked about, they would be saving more money this year if they designate them a post June 1 release. One of the guys that I mentioned, Javon Hargrave, is designated a post June 1 release. And they were kind of keeping that option open for Deebo Samuel. If it came to the point where they would release him, that would have been a post June 1 release, but instead they trade him to Washington. Okay, I'm going through here looking for any highlighted green. Looking for highlighted people who. Okay, I'm just going to spin through it here. A lot of questions. Thank you so much. Here's this one. Are we writing the 49ers off in 2025? I want to, because of what I just said, I wouldn't write them off. Does it look particularly good at this point for the 49ers? No, it doesn't. But let's go through, now that we mentioned this. Okay, so Leonard Floyd, there has to be a plan in place there. Does that mean Joey Bosa? Are we going to hear something soon on that? We shall see. What else here? Okay, so Kyle Juszczyk, they were ready to move on from him last year, and the signing of Luke Farrell would suggest that that's the way they're pivoting. With Dre Greenlaw last year, they 2 years ago they drafted D. Winters and Jalen Graham. This last year they drafted Tatum Bethune. Not saying that any of those guys can replace Dre Greenlaw, but maybe they were kind of bracing for that. Charvarius Ward, they certainly braced for that by drafting Renardo Green in the second round last year. Aaron Banks, I think the draft pick of Dominic Pooney was the reason, because of Banks' situation, losing him potentially. I think that's why the Pooney draft pick was made. 49ers can find a starting caliber guard or interior offensive lineman in this draft, and it doesn't even have to be with the 11th overall pick. What do we got here? Talanoa Hufanga, losing him. They kind of, figured the last 2 years by taking Jair Brown 1 year, Malik Mustafa the next. Kind of figured that out as far as how they would replace him. Jalen Moore was never a starter with the 49ers. Joshua Dobbs, losing him, that was kind of the writing was on the wall there. Although the 49ers do have some work to do at backup quarterback position. I almost thought, half expected them, or maybe just more curious about whether Nick Mullins would be somebody that they would consider. Funny story from the 2022 NFL draft. After that draft was over, I was talking to a couple very high-ranking 49ers people, and I asked them about Brock Purdy, and the answer was he's basically Nick Mullins. And so I know Kyle Shanahan likes to have quarterbacks who are the same style so that nothing really has to change if they have to go to a backup quarterback. So there's part of me that thought, would not be surprised if 49ers bring back Nick Mullins. They don't. Obviously, the processing skills of Brock Purdy separated himself and made the decision-making. And Nick always seemed to be a little bit prone to making mistakes. Purdy has to clean up that spot in his repertoire. Elijah Mitchell, losing him, 49ers expected that. So, they did select Isaac Rindo in the draft last year and then signed Jordan Mason a couple of years ago as an undrafted rookie. And then, of course, figuring they were going to lose either Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel in the next year. That's why the 49ers selected Ricky Pearsall at number 31 overall in this last draft. What do we got here? Just kind of looking. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of scanning the comments section until something kind of pops out. Let's see here. Somebody's joining late. Thank you for the updates. Thank you. I appreciate that. I see a question, or it's something about Jordan Mason. Now, it's certainly not a given that he's back with the team this year, because I think the 49ers certainly would be open to trading him. I think they just didn't want to put the right of first refusal offer on him and then just not be able to match it and then lose him in free agency. I just wonder, because of the strong class of running backs, how much you want to invest in a free agent running back when you're going to have so many different options. And the one thing I'd say about Jordan Mason, all right, I guess I'm live. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for that. I don't know what happened. Usually my internet's pretty good. He's back. I'm back with a vengeance. All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me back. Thanks for not going anywhere. Wow. You're very patient. I appreciate that. If you some of you joined me last week, so ridiculous. What day was it? It's a day that I was going to do a live stream, and I couldn't figure out why my mic wasn't working. This mic right here. Why the heck wasn't it working? Well, it's because, and I never do this. I had just taken my dog for a walk, and I was wearing my ear pods, and I just took them out and put them in my pocket. I didn't put them back in the case. So the sound was trying to pick up my AirPods, which were in my pocket. I know, freaking boring. You don't want to hear me talking about. Um, you don't want to hear me talking about technical difficulties. That was just a result of me being stupid. Okay, so a lot of Joey Bosa talk right now, and we shall see what it means. I would think that um, I would think that the 49ers wouldn't necessarily want to make a move until it's a sure thing with anybody, any agreement because of how they got burnt last year. So we shall see what it means. I'm surprised, frankly, that the Joey Bosa situation hasn't been resolved at this point. But I think it just kind of goes to point that there's not going to be any hometown discount going to the Dolphins. Actually, there might be because of just the uh, the income tax situation. But I don't think there's going to be any home brother discount either. Joey Bosa is a businessman, and he wants to get paid. I don't think he's going to take less to play for his brother. Maybe he would a little bit, but we'll see where that thing turns out. But what I was saying was, I'm a little bit surprised it hasn't already happened. I thought it would probably happen before the open negotiating period started. The Chargers kind of gave him a heads up, or kind of did him a solid by allowing him into free agency early, 4-day head start into free agency. But that's why they're going here. Here's a question: why invest so much in Purdy if they're in rebuild mode? Well, again, I don't think they're in rebuild mode. But also, if you are just building, period, what's the most difficult position to find? It's a quarterback. So if you have a quarterback that you love, then you keep them, and you take whatever it takes to keep them. And I'm of the belief that determining how much, and when we're talking about a lot of dollars, when you're determining how much money to pay a quarterback, that's a really good problem to have, because basically every team falls into one of three categories: teams with high-priced quarterbacks, teams that have young quarterbacks on rookie deals and you're getting a bargain for 3 years. And then the other kind of bucket we'll put teams in are teams that wish they had high-priced quarterbacks. And so if you don't take advantage of that, then you're destined to fail, because the common denominator, by and large, with every team that makes a run at the postseason, in the postseason, every team that competes for a Super Bowl, is they all have quarterbacks that are really good. So here we go. Okay, the 49ers officially have released Leonard Floyd, so he'll go out on the wire today. And so there's no corresponding move as of yet, but that is official from the 49ers just at 11:06. So 1 minute ago, 49ers announced that they have released Leonard Floyd. Again, not a huge surprise, but one of those that makes you wonder, well, what does that mean? What's the next thing? What's the move that they do? Because now you got to replace a guy just like Malik Collins. You have to replace a guy who played 17 games, who started 17 games, and gave the team, I think, what they expected. I don't think that when the 49ers signed Leonard Floyd, that they could have been expecting much more than what he gave them, which was 17 starts, 8.5 sacks, and it was his lowest figure in 5 years, but it was very much in line of what he had produced for the Rams and for Buffalo over that time period. We're talking about a guy who had 10 and a half sacks, 9.5 sacks, 9 sacks, 10 and a half sacks, and 8.5 sacks. So what it does, where Malik Collins played 67% of the snaps last season at the defensive tackle position, Leonard Floyd played 57% of the snaps. So that's a lot of snaps that they have to replace on that defense. Smash the like button. All right. I like that. I like that comment. I don't have anything on Jameis Winston. Not that that would surprise me, but maybe a little bit of a surprise that they would go down that road. But they do, they look at, they talk to a lot of agents, they talk to a lot of players and kind of try to figure out what makes the most sense for them. Here's a question from James Tyree. Do you think Drake Jackson can improve and get more snaps this season? For Drake Jackson, it's all about getting healthy. And I don't know that he can get healthy. He had his, the big breakout game, of course, to open the 2023 season, 3 sacks against Pittsburgh, but then had that patellar quad situation that he just could not get right with it. Had the offseason surgery. I think that's a surgery that he regrets, and maybe the 49ers regret that he had. Was never able to get right next season. I would say at this point, I'd be, surprised, I guess, if Drake Jackson is on the team in 2024. And I guess anything they give him would be something that would be just kind of found money. So, yeah, I don't think, I just don't think that at this point they can rely on him giving them anything. We've got a question from Ben Some Metal Ford. Bend Some Metal Ford. All right. Thank you very much for the kind gesture there, Ben Some Metal Ford. It highlighted, so it popped up so I could see it. And so obviously I'm going to respond to this. Why hire Saleh and it's Brant Boyer, while rebuilding? 49ers aren't rebuilding. There's not, that is not the stated goal of the team to rebuild. They're not tearing it down. They're not getting rid of all their high priced players. So why hire them? Because they thought that those two were the best guys available for the job. So it's as simple as that. I don't know if you would settle for lesser coaches if you were in a rebuild mode, but no, they've never said they're rebuilding. So that's, those are two areas they felt like obviously they can improve upon. Defensive coordinator with Nick Sorensen. Part of the reason why they let Sorensen go was because there were so many quality candidates out there, defensive coordinators around the league who were unemployed, and they knew that they could upgrade at defensive coordinator. And Saleh was number one on their list. They saw a few guys go by the wayside and sign with other teams. They waited, they played it right, and they got Saleh. And then for Brant Boyer, a guy who'd been with the Jets for a while, had been with several different coaching regimes there, highly thought of. So 49ers looking to improve their special teams. Okay, if there's anything else here, what do we got here? So just to recap, Leonard Floyd officially released by the 49ers, so they're not going to trade him and get anything for him. The 49ers did tender Jordan Mason, running back, at a second round level at high price, $5.3 million. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be on the team. As far as they're open to trading him, I would assume. But right now, they give him a nice gesture and a nice dollar amount right now of him as an unrestricted or as a restricted free agent. And so if any team wants to sign him as a restricted free agent, they could sign him to an offer sheet, and then for your multi-year offer sheet. And if the 49ers decline to match, then they would get a second round draft pick in compensation. And then it's a very short list of comings for the 49ers in free agency. Tight end Luke Farrell comes over from Jacksonville, and Richie Grant, a backup safety and special teams guy, comes over from Atlanta. And so I think that is it. Oh, we got a question about who's still out there. Here's a Lawless Light. Well, keep as long as I see those highlighted. More Kittle catches this year. That's from Lawless Light. Thank you very much for the contribution there, Lawless Light. More catches this year for George Kittle. I don't know if more. I mean, he's been a big part of this offense for the 49ers, and that's one guy that, they're going to have to figure some stuff out for him. He's going to be, the 49ers want to sign him to a long-term deal. They want to sign him, or I should say a multi-year deal, to replace the deal he has in place. John Lynch said his stated goal is to have George Kittle retire as a member of the 49ers. Last year, he caught 78 passes for 1,106 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I don't know how many more catches. His second year in the league, he had a career high of 88 catches. But I don't know if it means more. But if it's comparable to what it was last season, the 78 catches, 1,100 yards, I think that's what the 49ers would certainly like to do. I know there was a question about who's still out there as far as 49ers unrestricted free agents. The first one I'm just going to gloss over. You can make your jokes in the comment section. Devondre Campbell. There you go. Cornerbacks, Isaac Yiadom, Rock Ya-Sin, and Nick McLeod. You have quarterback Brandon Allen after Joshua Dobbs. Oh, by the way, am I wearing this? Yeah. In honor of Joshua Dobbs. It's a Cape Canaveral, right? Kennedy Space Center. Yeah. The Pastronaut. So a little shout out there. Can you see that? Kennedy Space Center. There we go. I think I got this last year when I was at the NFL owners meetings in Orlando. Let's see here. Kevin Givens, Khalil Davis. Those are two defensive linemen that I think they'd like to have back. Kevin Givens. Now remember, they released Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles a couple weeks ago, kind of a bookkeeping type of thing. He remains a possibility for them to re-sign. Another guy they could re-sign, Chris Conley, wide receiver. Eric Saubert, the tight end, probably not coming back after 49ers signed Luke Farrell or agree to terms with Luke Farrell. Tashawn Gibson, more than likely retired. Charlie Heck is a guy that could come back to the team and compete for, backup offensive tackle job. Also, Curtis Robinson, from everything I hear, doing quite well in his return from the torn ACL of last year. I'm just kind of checking my text messages, my phone, to see if there's anything that needs to be buttoned up before I end this. Let's see, are there any other so I think that's it. I think we probably covered everything. Man, hey, thank you so much for joining me on this kind of impromptu Q&A, YouTube live. Getting my text messages from Greg Papa. That's always fun. Um, all right. So that's a wrap, unless I see something just pop in that catches my eye. Well, here's a question. Would you grade the free agency and releases this off? What would I grade the free agency and releases? Well, I mean, my grade, I guess I'd go incomplete, although it's certainly a lot closer to an F than an A because they have a lot more free agent departures than guys coming, but also they should benefit from this down the road. Oh, one thing I want to point out. So the 49ers, how the compensatory figure or compensatory formula works. It's basically, well, it's not basically, it is teams are rewarded with compensatory picks for net losses that exceed net gains. So right now, the 49ers are, and I know you don't want to hear this, but for the 2026 NFL draft, 49ers could have a lot of draft picks. They could reach the maximum of compensatory picks because of their losses of Charvarius Ward, Aaron Banks, Talanoa Hufanga, Jalen Moore, and Dre Greenlaw, all getting really good money on the free agent market. And then, um, Luke Farrell, he would cancel out just because his contract doesn't reach that level, even close to that level that those guys I just mentioned, those five guys, Ward, Banks, Hufanga, Moore, and Greenlaw reach. So right now, they're in a good spot for the compensatory picks in 2026. What else do we have here? I think that's it. All right. Well, thank you so much for everybody for tuning in to this. Uh, 49ers have a lot of work to do because they lost a lot of guys. And yes, they tried to kind of soften the blow in previous years by drafting guys that they figured could step in to roles if some of those guys left. I don't think any of these guys leaving is a surprise. However, I did think the 49ers had a really good chance to re-sign Dre Greenlaw. I thought that they had a moderate chance of re-signing Talanoa Hufanga. They didn't get the job done with Greenlaw. I think they probably weren't all that competitive with Hufanga when you saw where the number would come in. And for the 49ers, why couldn't they have gone up there to get Greenlaw? I really think that after last year, they were kind of gun shy a little bit as far as seeing how they paid big money to guys last year who couldn't get on the field, and um, and then they know the history of Greenlaw. They know the medical situation, and I think they just felt like it was a risk too big to take. We can debate that. I understand it. Um, we'll see whether it's a move that looks bad in retrospect or not. Okay, only because of your generous gift. Hey, Matt, did you want Kinlaw to smack Grant Cohn? I don't. I think I was there that day. That was off-season program, I believe. I I don't. I was oblivious to it until well after the fact. Um, so I will kind of pull the curtain back. I was involved in a sit down in John Lynch's office that involved Grant Cohn and Javon Kinlaw, and I'm sure at some point when Grant writes a book, well, I'm sure Grant's probably already talked about it, but it was interesting, and we'll just leave it at that. Kinlaw and yeah, that was a memorable. That was God. What was that? Like three? Is that 3 years ago? 2 years ago? So, um, I just speaking of Javon Kinlaw, someone just someone from Washington just texted me about Kinlaw, and basically what I said was he's played he hasn't. Well, I saw another person from the Jets. First off, just I'm jumping all over the place here. Someone from the Jets described him as a decent player. Um, Washington Commanders paid him a lot more than what they would a decent player. I always thought he was better as a pass rusher than as a run guy because his pad level would get too high. He's a big man. His pad level will get too high and he get blown off the ball. So, but with his frame, um, I don't think there's any questioning his work ethic, how serious he takes his job, any of that stuff. But I think if you look at him, you just go, oh, he's on the verge of breaking out. On the verge of becoming a great player if he can just figure it out, get on the field, stay on the field, improve. He could be a really good player. That's what the 49ers thought back in 2021 as 2020 when they drafted him um, to basically take DeForest Buckner's spot. And then he just couldn't stay healthy until his final year when he played in 17 games. And last year he played in 17 games. So I do believe that he's got his physical issues ironed out and he's been able to stay healthy. So, okay, now I think I'm going to end this. Thank you so much for watching. And I think that is going to be it. Yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for hanging with me through my technical stuff with being bumped offline, and we'll keep you posted on anything we hear as far as the 49ers. But the one thing to keep an eye on right now is Joey Bosa. And if the release of Leonard Floyd is a precursor to Joey Bosa coming to the 49ers, or what they have cooking, what they have in mind, because their defensive line, which was not real deep last year, already, they're moving on from Javon Hargrave. They're prepared. They will be releasing Malik Collins. They've already released Leonard Floyd. So that's where it is. And thanks so much. Leave a comment, a like. If you haven't already, please subscribe. All the stuff I say on every video. And that is it for now. So thanks for watching.